Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by people, but yet feel so alone? Hi, I'm Emily, and welcome to my channel. If you've ever felt disconnected from relationships before and people, it might not be them, it might be you. Why do I know that? It's because I have done the same. But here's some good news is that you can change that today. You can change that feeling of disconnection and change it to open your heart and create real connections. Emotional availability is being open, sharing vulnerably. It's being present. It's being non judgmental or critical in conversations. It's just being completely open to a conversation no matter what they say. And it's just being there for them, with an open heart. It is so easy to be emotionally unavailable due to like upbringing, past traumas, fears, not wanting to be vulnerable. Is just a whole slew of things that like we all deal with in our lives and our relationships. And it's something that, is you may not even know that you have it, but it's just like it's so present in a lot of people's lives, mine especially. And it's just like there's not a whole lot we can do about that, but once we're aware of it, then I can take action. I always considered myself as someone who is emotionally available or super vulnerable, but it turns out that it's not actually true. Because I found that like I'm actually not being super vulnerable. I'm still very protected. And like it's from like past traumas or hurts or pains from other people or I would take on what people said to me as truth, as in like I was unworthy or I wasn't good enough in a way. And so it just took on a life of its own. So now I'm understanding that I'm actually emotionally unavailable. So I'm working on that. This may not be true for everyone, but I know for sure as empaths, I'm an empath. So an empath, like, over when somebody like walks into the room and or talks to us and they're negative or down or depressed or having, being very nasty or negative or upset, we end up absorbing that energy of them. And then it's like all of a sudden, like it sucks our energy away. And so this is part of the reason why we end up attracting narcissists because we um we so badly want to help them or fix them. Narcissists take our energy and then take advantage of us as empaths because they need the validation and attention, and we're willing to give it to them because we so badly want to help them or support them or help them heal. Empaths feel like it's their responsibility to help to take on other people's emotions. So we try to help heal or fix someone else to so they aren't feeling those emotions. But in the process, we get hurt ourselves or absorb their energy. For example, for me, like I starting to understand and learn that I attract emotionally unavailable people, especially men, like especially in the past, like they're always unavailable. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why don't they want me? That why don't, they like me or anything like that? And so I'd get in this cycle. And then I finally realized that, it's just who I'm attracting. This stemmed from childhood for me. So this was like I always felt guilt or shame or that I was doing something wrong or I wasn't doing it right. And so it's like I realized that I was, you know, taking on the emotions of my parents and they weren't really like emotionally available in a way. So cuz my mom was, kind of controlling and strict and my dad wasn't really there because he was traveling for work, providing for our family. And so like this my parents, I don't fault my parents for this. It's just something now that I'm aware of. But it's like they only knew what they knew how to raise me back then. And I'm like, no parent's perfect. We always get something from our parents, but it's just like it's something that now I'm aware of, and that I was like, oh, I had no clue until recently that I was truly attracting emotionally unavailable people. And because it was from childhood, that emotionally unavailability ended up like in all my relationships. And this is because it felt safe as a child. So and I felt like like this was normal. This was something that, was prevalent, and I had no clue that it was that deep. And so it was just like, yeah, so I just constantly kept attracting because it was safe and um familiar. Because it felt safe, it was almost like a codependency, so it's like I felt like it was what I needed in the relationship, even though I was felt heartache and pain and frustration and upset and crying a lot, or, so it caused me to attract, like, narcissists like crazy. And so then, I ended up in, like, an abusive, verbally and emotionally abusive relationship, and it didn't serve me, and it just didn't feel good, and I literally just didn't see it because I was so in the thick of it. I was always so afraid of getting hurt so much that I ended up actually attracting pain and frustration because it's like I wasn't able to be independent on my own without that codependency feeling. So it was just like it just caused more and more pain. I used to give, give, give because to me that felt like if I gave, that they wouldn't leave me. But in turn, it actually made the person feel like I was super dependent on them and not my individual self. So it ended up actually like creating like a neediness, like high maintenance, and it's just too much for them. And it actually ended up repelling them because I had that kind of neediness. And so like I totally get it now why, because that is repellent. But, like, I was, literally thinking that, like, if I gave more, that they would want to keep me around. I used to think that keeping my heart hidden and keeping my emotions hidden, that it would keep me safe, but in turn, it actually would do the opposite. Instead, like, it would keep, a lot of my friendships would fail, and all of my, relationships, romantic relationships would fail. And I could never figure out why, or I never felt like relationships seemed so hard. And it's because I just had all my walls up because I'm so afraid of what other people are gonna perceive me as, or they're not gonna take me as the person that I am. It's just learning that I'm actually, like, not as vulnerable as I thought I was. Emotional walls is like, I find, like, they protect you in a way, but then they keep the love out, and then the loneliness gets prevalent, and sometimes you're trying to figure out, like, "Why do I feel so alone in this world when I'm surrounded by a lot of people?" But it's like, it's creating true connections with people and being completely honest and open, and just being okay with saying what you're gonna say. Here are some steps to become emotionally available. Let's get into it. One thing is being self-aware. So this could be using like journaling or meditation and being like, what kind of people do I attract? Or this could be like, what are my relationships based on? Are they out of fear? Are they from the past? Or is it from trauma because it's familiar? Or is it comfortable or safe? Because of like how you felt back in your childhood. It's just things to like think of and write them out so that like you can start realizing, like, I don't know, go through maybe a few of your friends or your romantic relationships and what patterns like you keep seeing, like, why do I keep attracting somebody who's not into me, or that I feel like I have to fight to keep, or just start writing stuff out like that, just so you can actually be present to like the kind of relationships you are attracting. Basically, it's like knowing what you're protecting yourself from in these relationships. Oh yeah, through this self-awareness, it's also like what feelings and emotions come up when you are, writing out like, who all these relationships you have. Like, do these people make you feel safe? Do they make you feel uncomfortable? Do they make you feel like you have to fight or flight kind of thing? Like, see what's prevalent in a pattern, and like see all the different relationships you have. Another thing would be embracing vulnerability. So this is something that's like vulnerability is so important in relationships because then the other person knows what you need, want, and desire. Where, if you aren't open, then they have no clue, and you're just going through, trying to figure each other out without actually communicating it to each other. I get that vulnerability can be painful because you don't want to get hurt. I know that for a fact, but when you do have a conversation with somebody that you really care about, then it's much easier to work it out with each other because maybe they have something that they haven't opened up to you about because they're afraid. And so it's your opportunity to create this open heart connection between each other. Practice vulnerability in so many different ways. If you share your feelings with somebody without attachment of what they say back, or it's like dealing with your fears. So when it comes to if you're fearful about something, just take the action anyway and just get out of your comfort zone because the more action you take around being uncomfortable, the more you grow and the more you're able to open up to people because then it's just like then you just feel more comfortable and confident around it. And it's a slow process, but it's just like little baby steps. And the more you are vulnerable with somebody, like the more conversations you really deep conversations you can have with each other. Like making a challenge to take uncomfortable action around something. It doesn't not necessarily have to be like vulnerability with somebody. It could be taking uncomfortable actions so you get used to something that's uncomfortable, so then you can work up to like the uncomfortableness about being vulnerable with somebody with the fear of getting hurt. But it's like you could always like ask somebody a question or open up to somebody about something that's important to you, and just go in realizing that they could reject it, because there's always also a fear of rejection if you go in and tell somebody your feelings about them. But it's like if you go in thinking that oh, they're probably going to reject me anyways, then you're more open to talk about it, and you might actually be surprised with what they say back to you. For me, I guess something vulnerable would be I don't like to tell people like how I truly feel, or admit when I'm wrong, but I opened up to people before and be like, "Hey, look, I made a mistake here and I said something I shouldn't have, but I need to discuss it with you." And I hated going into that conversation because I had all these nerves and feelings about how they were going to respond to what I said. And it was funny, every single time that I would truly open up to somebody about, like, hey, I made a mistake in my communication to you. I said something I shouldn't have, or I did something I shouldn't have. Then it's like, it's actually ends up like diffusing the frustration, anger. It makes me feel better if I'm talking about it, even though like I have no idea what to expect. But most of the time that I found that I've opened up to somebody and said, "Hey, like we've had a communication error and it's on me." When I put it in my court, then it's funny how they end up opening about like, okay, like I guess I did something wrong here as well, how I communicated back to you. But it's like it's a very eye-opening and freeing conversation, even though you're nervous and you're maybe sweaty, but it's just like it's something that like is super freeing, like if you have that conversation no matter the nerves. I truly believe that vulnerability can be a superpower. So just work at it. I'm going to keep working out. I know it's tough for me as well, but I know you can do it and I know I can do it. So let's do this together. Another one is active listening and empathy. So I know can be a tough one sometimes because we have in our head like a perceived notion about the other person or how we think they're going to react or what we think they're going to say. And it's just being completely present in the moment with them without interrupting them, or um, without interrupting them, so that they can actually get through it all without you going, well, I think this. It's just being like present and calm and breathing into it and just allowing them to say what they're going to say, because then you'll have your turn after that. Trust me, this is hard for me because I know active listening is something I truly have to work on, because I'm very like, if I get excited and I want to say something, like I feel like I got to interrupt somebody to say it. And instead, like I should just be, listening to them for what they're going to say and just allow them to finish their thought. Empathy is just something, it's not being like, oh, poor them. It's just being in the moment going, you're, it's almost like you're relating to what they're dealing with or what they're going to in a way, but not judging them, and just being purely present with them. And it's super important because like empathy, is everything. Active listening also is something where you're, not just like avoiding interruption, but you're validating them in a way, or you're making them feel seen and heard, and then hopefully they can do the same back to you. But it's something that's very powerful in a conversation with somebody, because then they know that you're truly listening and that you truly care for what they say. Setting boundaries and being open is another one. And so this is just creating a boundary that helps you become emotionally available, and it's just what works for you, like what boundaries you don't want people to cross, and maybe communicate to them, or like if communicate to them, hey, it's like it's okay if we agree to disagree, so you don't have an argument. But it's just something that's like setting the boundaries so that you feel safe in the conversation, and so you don't feel like violated or triggered or anything like that. And just it's also being like open-minded with somebody. So if they say something that triggers you, just listen to their side of it, and then maybe be like, well, I don't see it like this. This is how I perceived it. And that way you're able to like have a very open communication with each other and conversation. All of your relationships can completely transform if you become emotionally available with them. So let's work on this together. In the comments below, please tell me what you're working on in your to become more emotionally available. Like, or how can I help you? Or like what's some small like vulnerable step you're gonna take today? I would love to hear from you. I love you all, and let's do this together. Woo! Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more info.